All right, you guys, we got a very special treat for you here today. We actually have the founder of Solar Relief Center joining us to actually explain to you a full overview of what this offer actually entails, how the whole solar cancellation game works, and we're going to show you exactly how you guys can participate in this offer that will be the biggest gold rush of 2025. Let's get started. All right, what's going on, Adam? How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. I'm happy to have you on here, man. This is going to be a good one. This is going to be a good one for the Bucks. All right. So we have a very special treat for you guys here today. I'm joined by the one and only Adam, who's one of the co-founders and the active operator of Solar Relief Center that's actually hosting an offer here with us at EDM Lead Network. I think it's going to be super powerful for everybody to kind of understand what this offer is, how it works, and I want you guys to hear it from the horse's mouth itself as far as how this is and what they're looking for specifically. So if you could briefly just introduce yourself, let the audience know who you are, kind of what your background is as we start to get into everything.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Adam 𝐭𝐡𝐢𝐬. So I am the co-founder of the Stonegate firm and Solar Relief Center. So our background is in timeshare cancellation. So we own a pretty big timeshare cancellation company. We also have a co-branded law firm, Stonegate Law. And back in October, or it was before October, last year at some point, we were like thinking of other verticals, and we looked at tax, we looked at debt settlement and a few other things. But then one day I was thinking, and I was like, man, a lot of consumers got screwed by solar companies. And look, I'm not saying not all solar companies are bad. I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there that got burned by door-to-door solar sales reps, right?
100%.
Yeah.
We know this game, Adam. We definitely know this game.
Yeah.
But so you guys saw this opportunity and like the solar space as far as, a lot of bad actors kind of facilitating business. And from there, like, what did you guys do next? And did you kind of start to draw out with your lawyers and your law firm how you could make this offer live, or?
Yeah, we did. So first thing we did was we spoke with our chief legal officer and the managing partner at Stonegate Law, which is Dennis Donovan. So we spoke with him and said, hey, look, we think that there's something here. Is the process similar to how you would go about canceling a timeshare? And he looked at it and kind of went through the motions, and he said, yeah, it is. It's very similar, very similar. We see a lot of, it's almost like the same thing. I mean, I will say solar cancellations are much harder, especially when you're approaching them from not as a debt settlement situation, but as a sales misrepresentation case or consumer protection case. It's a lot of timeshare exit companies will do a strategic default method, which is basically just tell a client stop paying. We don't do that. So we had to approach it from more of a legal standpoint as opposed to just simply stop making your payments and then good luck. So, yeah.
Which is the burden for everybody. And here's probably where like most people think this offer is just too good to be true. Can you kind of go over like from start to finish real quick, Adam, as far as like what the value proposition is for the consumer, like what that process looks like as being able to get them out of the contract, and like how long does this actually take to be able to get to a resolution?
Yeah. So first of all, let me just say first, any publishers out there, what you should not be doing is convincing happy solar customers to cancel their solar. Like what we don't want to do or ever give the vibe that we're doing is interfering with a valid legal contract. So that is not what we're doing. So the ideal consumer is somebody who has misrepresented heavily during the solar sales process. Even better if they have evidence. If they have evidence of that, that's like really good. But that's it. Maybe the solar salesperson told them, hey, you'll never pay electric again. There's a plethora of things that they say during the sales process, but the best consumer is one that's been misled during the sales process. Now, what is our intake and exit process? It takes a while. So, and it's longer than timeshare exit actually. So if our average timeshare exits culminating in 6 to 12 months, like this is like dog years almost. I mean, it's not really dog years, but it's taken a while. In our service agreement, we put 18 months, but it can take longer. The reason it takes longer is because there are sometimes 4 entities that need to be addressed. So one is the sales organization, which is different than the solar entity. The sales organization, then the solar entity, the finance company that's holding that note, and then in some cases, the manufacturer of the panels. And so there's different. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's crazy. I didn't know there was 4 parties in most situations.
Yeah, there's 4 in some cases. So, it's like reaching out to those 4 entities and making sure that they're aware of the consumer's grievances. That's step 1. And then depending on how those responses come back, or sometimes they don't respond at all, but depending on that charts the next step in the process. And what we guarantee is that if the consumer does everything that we tell them to do through the process, we will produce a strategy that culminates in the cancellation of their solar. Now, big question, and we get this even from some of our sales agents, is like, well, what happens to the panels? We don't know. Like, we're not sending somebody out there to remove the panels. We have no interest or anything. If the consumer, after they've been removed of their obligations, wants to get those removed, they can do so. We haven't yet to see any panels be removed. So we just don't address that at all. Like, that's up to the consumer. All we're doing is getting them out of their contract.
Okay. Now, in most of these situations, because we've seen a massive exodus of businesses, operators, and a lot of salespeople from the solar space going to other ventures. In most cases where you guys are seeing people not responding, is it because they have gone out of business? Or if they don't respond, does that ever cause any friction for you guys being able to resolve these issues? Or like, who's the biggest player out of those 4 participants that really dictate whether or not this is able to actually happen?
Yeah, I would say that it's either the solar entity itself or the finance company, because there in these contracts there is a part that allows I don't know what the appropriate term here. I think it's like the lien holder or the note holder. It allows them to put a lien on somebody's house. I believe it's I think it's called a UCC1 filing. But anyway, that's a critical part here in getting that removed, because, and that's why a strategic default won't work in solar, because they're still going to have that lien, and that lien would have to be addressed, and that's not good. But yeah, I would say the solar entity or the finance company. And what we've seen, and there's nothing that can impact the process. I mean, worst case, if they don't respond, Stonegate Law could compel them to respond. So, opting out is not an option for these folks, but it won't. Where was I going with that? I'm sorry, you might have to cut this part because I messed it up. But
No, you're all good, Adam. But specifically, like, think about it like a lot of these companies are going out of business, and like, let's say they don't get a response, or somebody's not engaging with them. Does any of that ever constrain them from being able to have the opportunity to get out if just somebody's not participating with them that was a part of that sales process? Like, a lot of these solar guys call them orphaned accounts, where they just don't belong to anybody, and nobody is really servicing that business other than the organization that sold them. But then they have no tie to the finance company or the actual manufacturing company. Like, they don't know what to do with them. So like, what happens with those situations?
yeah, well, nothing. I mean, that will not prevent anything at all, because those payments are going somewhere, and that's usually, the finance company's involved. They're going to answer, or they're going to. We can compel them to come to the table at least and get a response back, or see what their position is. Over the course of doing this, what we found is that all the entities involved are very good at pointing fingers at each other, right? So none of them want to accept responsibility. They're all, pointing it back and forth to the other entities. And so that is one thing that makes it harder than a timeshare exit, because timeshare, you're dealing with one entity, and they're pretty amicable these days. The timeshare resorts, like, they're pretty much willing to entertain the idea of a consumer canceling. Solar, we're still forging the path here, right? So they're not used to this. So, but there's nothing that could prevent it. I mean, there's literally these people are getting out and they're going to get out. So a non-responsive entity would not harm the process.
Okay. All right. That's good. Now, under what circumstances is someone not able to get help? Like, when are you guys not able to help a consumer
Well,
that wants to get out?
so we can help. Well, the traffic, I mean, we can technically help everybody, but the traffic that we don't want, or the consumer that it's probably a little too late in the game, is somebody who has defaulted on their financial commitments and who is in the process of a court collection. So if they're like being sued by a finance company, we probably don't want that, just because it becomes harder to deal with, and it just becomes less profitable, or less, it doesn't make financial sense for us to deal with those. We're happy to refer them to maybe local counsel if they need help, or a specialized attorney to deal with those types of cases. But that would be somebody that we probably wouldn't want to help. But who knows? Maybe it depends. Every case is different. But yeah, anybody with active litigation, we tend to stay away from that. As somebody who is happy with their solar, we don't want to convince happy people to cancel their solar. That's not what we're doing. They would have to be unhappy, aggrieved, feeling like they got scammed. That would be the ideal consumer. So,
okay. And like, at a certain point, people do start to figure out the system and take advantage of it. Like, have you seen any things that could identify a consumer that's trying to take advantage of a situation? Is there any ways to validate these consumers that actually are expressing interest, whether or not they were actually, misled or, finessed in some type of weird way?
yeah, and that comes out usually during the sales process, right? So when they fill out that form, they'll, and the sales agent gets back in touch with them, they'll kind of flesh themselves out, because if they're happy, as soon as they speak one of our sales representatives, they're going to understand that this is a legal and permanent cancellation of their solar. So if they're happy with it and it's saving them money, it's doing what it's intended to do, at that point, they would just bow out of that process, if they're assuming they're happy and they haven't been misled. So,
okay. And you say that you guys don't do anything with the panels or anything like that, but in most situations, are they still able to reap the benefits of the system that was installed on their home that they're using for solar?
So I can't speak to that. I don't know. I mean, what somebody chooses to do with those after this process is ended is fully on the consumer. We don't provide any guidance in that regard. If there are benefits to be reaped, we feel that they should reap them while honoring their financial commitments. But that's our position as a company. What the consumer chooses to do at the end is up to the consumer. But they should be advised that they may not actually own those panels. If they've canceled their contract and they're not paying for them anymore, then any problems that arise from them like messing with those panels or trying to hook them up or whatever, that's on them, and we have no responsibility for that.
Does the solar company or the financing company send somebody out to disconnect them?
I don't sometimes, but it's rare. And yeah, we haven't, I don't know if we've even seen maybe one that's like in that position right now. So I would say if you're, the consumer, like, don't count on someone coming out there. Like, I'm not coming out there to take the panels off. I know attorney Dennis isn't coming out there. Like, my partner's not coming, like, no one's coming. We're not coming out there. So
yeah. Okay. So that helps.
Actually,
So
Jamal, I actually have something else to say. So these panels, the technology moves so quickly that they don't have a lot of value. So it's safe to say that they're not.
They got crazy margins on these things.
Yeah.
Those margins are crazy. I know they're crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. So that if they paid them at all, they probably already paid their cost basis on them already. So I get it. I definitely get it. Now, does the consumer's credit get affected by this at all? Like, in terms of being able to, an ongoing dispute with the financing company or anything like that?
No, as long as they honor their contractual obligations, then no. So this is what I was talking about at the beginning when I mentioned the term strategic default. Strategic default is a widely used strategy in the debt settlement arena where a consumer is advised to stop making their payments. This triggers them to go into default, which will harm their credit. And at that point, a settlement of their debt can be negotiated. We don't do that. We're not a debt settlement company. So strategic default is not a legal strategy. So that's not something that we do. And so as long as that consumer continues to make whatever payments they have, then yes, no, their credit will not be affected. If that consumer chooses to stop making their payments, potentially their credit could be affected. I just want to make it clear that we don't advise a consumer in any regard. We're prepared to handle any situation that they're in. We do see sometimes consumers come to us and they're already in default. And that actually can limit your options. When you're in one of these situations where you're trying to exit a contract, being in default is not a good thing. It's like some people, some folks may say, well, yeah, but it's gonna make that entity come to the negotiating table, but it's not. It's like the consumer that's in default is coming from less power. They have less power in the negotiation. A consumer that's not in default, there's multiple different strategies, roads that we can go down. But yeah, so short answer, this will not affect their credit as long as they continue to make their payments.
Okay. Now, during the full extent in which you guys are working to get them out of their solar contract, they're still making payments up until the point where that contract is forgiven or eliminated or whatever the situation is there?
If they choose to, yes. There could come a time where they may feel comfortable enough to stop making their payments. That advice will never come from us, but they may decide that they are okay with taking some sort of credit hit until the end of the process. I would say folks that work for the government or some law enforcement jobs like DEA, FBI, stuff like that, they can't have credit problems, because if they do, they'll lose their security clearance.
Yeah.
So, any consumer in that position should definitely speak with us before they choose to stop making their payments.
Yeah.
So,
definitely good to have some attorneys on the team to be able to help you out with all of the potential risk and exposure points that exist. Now, when you guys come on board with the client representing them, one of these consumers, at any point, once you guys are engaged with that consumer and the financing company or the solar company that's involved, do they ever try to reciprocate problems on those consumers? Do they ever go after them legally outside of what you guys are already working together to settle with them? Or what's the situation there? Does a consumer have any type of exposure there at all with these solar companies or financing companies coming after them?
Well, no, we have not seen that at all. But I will say, per some of these contracts, if a consumer stops paying for their solar, those are the ones where we would see where they would be, the finance company may choose to sue that consumer for that debt. We haven't seen that, but no, you're allowed to challenge, contracts and how you were sold. And it's not okay, under federal consumer protection laws, it's not okay for these salespeople to do some of the things that they've done. For example, signing for consumers, misleading the consumer as to the pricing, the finance fees, that stuff's not okay. And so the consumer is more than within their rights to challenge these things.
No, I believe that. And I know these people are out here trying to scheme all the time. Oh, man. Now, this seems like something that's not really evolved lately. There's a ton of AGs all over the country right now that are actively pursuing these financing companies, these solar companies, all of these things. What do you kind of foresee as the future of this space, and what do you think is going to happen long term with a lot of these solar company and financing companies?
I think they're going to clean up their act. I think that's what I think. I think there's going to be, when it was it's kind of the Wild West right now, it still is, but there's an ethical way to sell solar that doesn't involve lying to consumers. There are a lot of benefits to solar when it's done correctly. And so I think that where the industry will probably go is consumers will purchase based on benefits. They won't be misled into thinking that they're now participating in a government program and they're gonna, like, so the president of the U.S. is gonna personally pay their electric bill. Like once the sales process is cleaned up, then it's good. Like it's all good. It's just when these people, particularly elderly folks, somebody knocks on their door, they might be lonely, they don't have anyone to talk to, they let them in, and they just get sold some stuff that's just not good. So it's kind of where I see it going. I think it'll just clean up.
I 100% agree with that. I think a lot of these things got to get cleaned up. Unfortunately, everybody hates regulation, but regulation only gets implemented because of bad actors. And fortunately, there's a lot of them in every industry. Now, one thing that I do want to kind of give an understanding of is like, as a business right now, is there a high percentage of consumers that come through the existing flow that are able to get service? And the people that aren't able to get service, is it typically because they're kind of weeding themselves out? Or are there anything specifically that's kind of disqualifying them other than, they already are in default, or, they're happy with what they have? Is there anything else that would disqualify those consumers?
No, just active litigation. I mean, that would disqualify them. And even sometimes, like if there's litigation pending, and this is like rare, but sometimes Stonegate Law can prepare pleadings and filings for the consumer to file pro se, just so they can. In some cases, we've seen that happen, but yeah, usually it's like if they're in default already, or they're like literally being sued, or there's already a lien. I mean, we still want to look at it, like we still want to see if we can help them, but those just become more onerous to service, and they're very complex. And the way our legal service model works is we rely on limited scope legal representation under federal consumer protection law. So what that means is the representation that they receive may be limited in scope to the solar matter. So just a limited scope legal representation. They're not getting a direct line to any of the attorneys at Stonegate Law. Like they'll go through a case manager or a paralegal. And that's not to say the attorneys don't get on the phone. They do. I mean, they speak to clients every day, but this consumer will not have direct access at their own discretion to an attorney, if that makes sense. They'll be dealing with a paralegal case manager.
No, it makes sense. So at least they can be able to get help in other ways if, they do have any issues. But it does seem like this is pretty broad in terms of what we can do. Now, just to kind of get back into everything with everybody. So you guys, this offer is going to be public. It is a hosted offer. We're accepting inbound calls. We're accepting traffic. We're accepting form fills, and we're also accepting live transfers for this campaign. You guys are going to see all those links down below, broken up by all the different product types. But look at the customer journey, understand exactly what consumers are looking for. Watch this video back to make sure that you guys can be aligned on expectations as far as what Adam and his intake team is expecting, as far as quality of traffic and who are the consumers that we're actively looking to help and engage. Now, Adam, before we kind of, see everything off, what specific KPIs do you want everybody to be mindful of that's going to help with being able to sustain their campaign as a publisher for this offer and ensure that there's mutual synergy and alignment on both sides?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think any consumer that's when you say KPI, you mean like cost per lead, or like what sort of?
No, so more so like what performance indicators are you guys kind of keeping track of internally in terms of like to dictate quality, intent, like connectivity rates? Like what type of things are you guys identifying in order to make sure that these offers are able to be sustained?
Oh yeah, so a big one. So on the back end of the funnel, there's a appointment booking. They can book an appointment with their seniors. So we call our sales agents senior specialists. So on the back end of that funnel, once we capture the lead form, the consumer does have the option to book an appointment. We're seeing insane rates. It's like 50% plus consumers are actually booking that appointment. We don't see that in any other vertical. Well, we don't see that in timeshare. So
definitely don't see that in timeshare.
No. It's like, so, I mean, that's a good indicator, and we can post, Jamal, we can come up with a post back way to get that back to the
yeah,
pub,
that reporting, 100%.
But yeah, that'd be the biggest one. And I mean, I think, just genuine consumers that genuinely need help, that aren't just, and I'll say another point too, and a lot of it can be dependent on the media that's being put out by the pub. So like if they're putting out some ads that are a little bit aggressive, they might get lower quality traffic. If they put out ads, then we can go over the finer points and I can give you the details. But the leads are not that expensive. Like I'm personally doing the media buying for the brand right now, and like it's ridiculous. It's not expensive. So I think the publishers are going to be happy.
No, they're definitely going to be happy with this offer. Now, in terms of like what you guys see as aggressive versus what is clean and actually guiding the consumer in the right journey, like what is too aggressive that like just won't be tolerated at all? That's just going to kind of blow up the campaign before it gets going.
Yeah. So what would not be approved is any idea that a consumer is going to get a refund. Like that may happen, but a consumer should not sign up with our services because they think they should get money back. It very well may happen, but we don't want to lead with that, because what we see in that case is consumers that call up and they're like, hey, my solar's doing fine. Can I get some money back? That's one that we don't want to deal with. It's another one that, like, convincing happy people to cancel their solar. Again, it just boils down to like, were you misled? Are you unhappy with your solar? Are you unhappy with your solar because you were lied to and misled? Like somebody that is unhappy and is just paying so much money and they only signed because they were lied to, like that's the person that we want to help. So yeah.
So I think that's probably a very critical point, because I could definitely see how that can get misconstrued so quickly. That could definitely get misconstrued quickly. So offering like rebates or money back guarantees or things like that is just something that's not going to be sustainable at all. Now, in terms of like just the appointments that are getting booked, like what are your average cap rates that you guys are seeing of these people that are booking appointments? Like, is that a high percentage as well? What's the statistics there?
Like people that show up for the appointment?
Yeah, that show up.
I know it's high. I don't have an exact number, but it is that most folks do keep it, or they'll reschedule because we send them a link. They can reschedule if they want. Plus, even if they book an appointment, they're still getting a call from a sales rep. So like, regardless of anything, one of our senior specialists is calling that person, even if they book, unless they book like 2 hours from now, then the senior specialist will just wait. But like if they book 3 days and we only open up the calendar for a week. So like we're not letting them book 2 months out. Like they got to book within a week.
Yeah. So, super important. Super important.
But yeah, the show rate's solid. As far as the calls, we are still fleshing out our inbound call center. So we do have someone will answer the phone, but we are, so in the timeshare side, we have a call center. So we're going to segment off some of those folks and put them on SRC, Solar Relief Center, and let them handle inbounds. So, and then we do hit the consumer with a 2-shot SMS. It just says, hey, Jamal. And then there's another message, when's a good time to talk about canceling your solar? So it's a very simple 2-shot SMS. It works really well. But yeah.
Perfect. Now, one other question that I have for you, Adam, is like when consumers are going through this flow and like appointments are getting booked, is there a limit on capacity as far as what you guys can be able to handle on a daily basis right now? Because I do know once we get this offer up and running, it's going to be a hot one. Like, what are some of the capacity levels look like, and what will you kind of use as a gauge to kind of throttle volume right now?
Yeah, I mean, so at this time we don't have any limits. We have about, I want to say 16 sales agents dedicated to Solar Relief Center. We also do have a bunch of sales agents on our timeshare side that we can make hybrid if we need to. So there's a lot of upward mobility here. On the case management side, we're constantly hiring new case managers, new paralegals. So we're staffing up we're expecting that this is going to blow up even more. So
amazing. Well, we're going to help contribute to making it rain. You guys, This has been an absolute wonderful conversation. I want you guys to rewatch this, understand exactly what this offer entails. Click the link below. Go ahead and check out all these offers that are now available within the EDM catalog exclusively with Solar Relief Center. You guys will be able to apply directly to this offer. Adam will see all of the applications that come through. And right now, Adam, you're turning over applications within 24 hours, right? So you're going to be approving things very, very fast. So you guys go ahead and submit those applications. Let's get it rolling. And if you guys have any additional questions that want to get answered, we're going to be setting up an open forum with Adam directly where you guys can answer and ask these questions directly within the platform. So let's get it rolling, you guys. I appreciate you guys. Adam, thank you so much for going through everything with us. It's been amazing to have you, man.
I love it, Jamal. Thank you so much for letting me come on, man. Super stoked to be working with EDM. Yeah, let's blow this up.
Hey, let's make it happen, everybody. Thank you, guys. Talk to y'all later.